Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Wednesday. It is April the 9th, and I appreciate you being here. We're going to get started. We're going to have a little bit of discussion today about the Department of Influencers, which is apparently what we voted for. I keep seeing this stuff out there. Look, there are people that are doing a great job in the Trump administration from what it looks like. At least they've got the right attitude. They're coming at it with the right energy. And there's people that are not. And let's just be honest about what they are. You guys know, I never put on the MAGA hat. I'm not a MAGA guy. I like seeing what Donald Trump is doing on international trade right now of like all the people out there, the people that are actually like departing the camp and crying about tariffs. I was like, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. Let's do it. Let's see the dip. Buy the dip. I threw money into the stock market yesterday in my 401k from 2024 because I usually do it in arrears. I'm just lazy about putting money in, and I decide how much I need to put in after I do my taxes. And I'll probably put the 2025 money in right now because it seems like a pretty good time. It's going to just keep dropping. Fine. I'm in. No big deal. Not scared of that. I'm a long haul person. I'm a passive investor if I'm going to do that at all. I don't even like doing 401ks. But there's an argument for putting the money there, right? And then there's not the working part of it. Then there's we thought we were getting something. And the people who are turning out to do an awesome job, it seems like Pete Hegseth really seems to be getting it. I'm seeing two things from a Pete Hegseth type. I see him showing up with the troops. He's in PT gear. He's doing push-ups. He's out there pushing the sled. He's hanging out with SF dudes in Germany, whatever. But he's also sitting behind the desk and talking about fraud, waste, and abuse, and about cutting, and about this is how we're going to fix this, and getting rid of generals or admirals or people that are sucking in that system that we called out. And then we're seeing what's going on the other side. And I don't like calling people by nicknames nearly as much, but like, what else do you call Kristi Noem right now other than Border Barbie? She's configured with whatever sort of outfit of the day is going to be. She's carrying guns like someone handed her a snake. We're seeing Kash Patel in tactical cool gear. That's not what I voted for. I don't want that. Where do those guys go? Where do the people go that said we were going to come in hard hitting and solve these problems? Where's the 4 million immigrants that are going to get thrown out of this country? Is that happening? Because like right now we're on pace for a lot less than it used to be, and it's slowing down. I wanted to see a ramp up. We're seeing the other thing. In fact, we have it on pretty good authority. Let's just say that. And there's a possibility they change it, but it sounds like the FBI out in Arizona actually did a stand down of all assistance for ICE because Dan Bongino is going to come in and visit. The deputy director is going to come visit the office. And that caused them to bring everybody into the office because they don't want to be distracted by doing the flipping job of law enforcement. So that's really interesting that's more important. Optics are going to be more important. Kissing up to the new boss is more important. And apparently we've got a social media influencer in chief over there. I had an agent reach out to me today and he literally said this, dude, what the F? This guy seems to spend an awful lot of time as the social media influencer in chief and not running the bureau. That's just from a regular guy. We're all worried about this kind of stuff. I am the most worried because I want to see them be successful, and it doesn't look good. So we've got a ton of other news that is happening. Mostly we're going to go from, let's see, tariffs. We're going to talk about court decisions. There's some good stuff coming out of the courts. We're going to see a lot of the Trump administration decisions indicated whether or not it's going to be able to carry on when it gets to the highest courts. And so those are, even if the split decisions, the split seems to be working out okay. That's where we're going to go with it. Before we get started, let's do a quick plug for my friends at Patriot Coolers. They are our longest sponsor. They are great people. They are sitting on my desk at all times. I just did a really cool sit-down interview with the folks from Abolitionist Rising. I didn't realize like how aggressive that position is and why it actually lines up with mine. So we're going to have a really fun Sunday sit-down that we're getting put together. I got to get the editing done. But the whole time, obviously, being fueled by a Patriot Cooler. If you guys want to check out, I use the Major, so you'll see that on Sunday when we do the plug for them there. Big old red cup. It's got an awesome lid. It gives you the straw option. It gives you the drink option. It gives you unscrew if you like. 40 ounces. This one is 20 ounces. That is a handled coffee mug that's going to fit in any beverage sort of like drink dispenser that you got in your vehicle. Fits in the minivan. Fits in the truck. A little bit far in my truck. My truck's kind of like got a big interior. But if you guys want to check out Patriot Coolers, check them out. Get 10% off by using my promo code. It's KYLE. Again, you're supporting a good company that's probably going to get hit with some tariffs because all of that manufacturing has to be done overseas when it comes to double-walled insulated tumblers. It's just the nature of the beast. That's because of our EPA, it turns out. That's because of the way that our laws are set up. Hopefully we get that stuff fixed and they can bring that kind of stuff home. PatriotCoolers.com. Check them out. Good company. I don't want to hide anything from you guys. That's what I'm saying. KYLE is that promo code. And go ahead and get yourself one if you're in the market. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's get launched. Here we go. Every once in a while, somebody will be like, man, they're made in Chinese. Actually, one of you has actually been paying attention at a very disturbing level. I actually thought it was one of my best buddies from the Bureau. Somebody tagged me in a social media post yesterday, and I sent it over to my buddy, and I was like, I got you, dude. And he's like, that's not me. That's actually not my account. It said, everybody knows Kyle is made of Chinesium, which means somebody was listening yesterday. I love the term Chinesium. It did, in fact, come from discussions I had with another FBI agent. All right, so let's start off with some good stuff. This is with the Democrats. They're going to get everything back on track. They want to go ahead and have an America that is balanced. They want to have a left-wing party that is able to properly resist the right-wing influences and get us back to the middle where America belongs. And that's why CNN is going to be hosting a town hall with Bernie Sanders, with an 80-something-year-old self-proclaimed millionaire socialist. Well, that seems like that's going well. That's going to work out just great, right? They're going to host a town hall with the Vermont Independent, also known as left-wing loony. Bernie Sanders is going to be doing a moderated town hall with Anderson Cooper. It will air after 9 p.m. I wonder if that means they're going to be doing it live or if they actually did it and then they're going to play it. 9 p.m. seems kind of late for Bernie. He's not a young man anymore. He's a progressive, and he caucuses with Democrats. I mean, why are we even pretending that he's not a Democrat? He's like a far-left Democrat. He's too far left for the Democrats previously, but today, yeah, he actually is a Democrat. He's just a regular Democrat. All of the Democrats have run that direction. They've all gone off the deep end into the loony left. It used to be that they kept him at arm's length. That's why Bernie didn't used to actually have the name of Democrat, as far as I could tell. They were like, he's a Democrat, but we just don't want to acknowledge that. So we'll let him caucus with us, but he has to call himself an independent. Why don't they just, he was a standard bearer, was he not? Did he not run as a Democrat candidate for president and then got shysted by Hillary Clinton? Yeah. I don't even know why they're pretending anymore. But he's going to be doing the Fight the Oligarchy tour. There's something very special about this. Here's the thing that I know about guys like Bernie Sanders, guys like Gavin Newsom, guys like, what is that lady's name? She's over, hold on, I got a story on this. She's over in New Mexico. Her name is Michelle Lujan Grissom. I knew that name. I could see the face. I couldn't hear the name. Yeah, she's not a guy, but she does kind of grab dicks like a guy might grab genitals. Remember the whole Donald Trump reaching and grabbing women by the crotch situation? They have their own version of that over on the Democrat side. It's the governor of New Mexico. Story about her a little bit later. I keep seeing all these places that I wouldn't want to live, and the announcements coming out of them are absurd and insane. And I actually misunderstood one of the headlines when I was reading today. I read too fast, and I thought that it said a fire killed 20 people in a nursing home in California. And I went, God, that's awful. And then I realized after reading it again, it wasn't California, it was China. So I've got a couple of stories of horrible things happening around the world that even in the worst case scenario, I'd still rather be in America, but I don't want to be in any of these leftist cities. I don't want to be in any of these leftist states at this point. They're actually no-go zones for me, both because of gun laws and because of their horrible policies. We'll talk about some of that in a little bit. But again, very interesting that CNN is going to tack to the harder left. I thought they were moving to the middle with guys like Steve Jensen. They're obviously getting ratings out of that. They're getting people to pay attention. But it's pretty strange that they've decided Bernie Sanders is going to be a hero. So the big news of the day is always about tariffs for this week. That's just what the nature is because people are really excited. There's Trump holding up the reciprocal tariffs board. Somebody made that. We paid for it. I'm sure Democrats are very, very upset that there's a visual aid to go along with it. His sweeping global tariff snaps into effect, ushering in new era of disruption. Well, I felt like that was disruption that we wanted, wasn't it? I mean, the status quo was not great. Anybody who's talking about what's going wrong in America goes, okay, well, how do you just continue on and gently course correct, or do you shake it up and you try to make some order out of the chaos? And I think he's making order out of the chaos. So you've got folks in the White House press conferences asking questions. Are people going to start negotiating? And more importantly, China has upped their tariffs on the United States. So what are we going to do? And so the question of China has come up, and we got a little bit to cover on that. Here we go.
You mentioned the 70 countries or so. I'm curious, though, under what conditions at this point would President Trump talk to President Xi? about tariffs?
Look, I just spoke to the president about this, and he believes that China wants to make a deal with the United States. He believes China has to make a deal with the United States. It was a mistake for China to retaliate. The president, when America is punched, he punches back harder. That's why there will be 104% tariffs going into effect on China tonight at midnight. But the president believes that she and China want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get that started. And the president also wanted me to tell all of you that if China reaches out to make a deal, he'll be incredibly gracious, but he's going to do what's best for the American people.
That seems like a really fair answer, actually. A smart lady saying something that just makes sense. It's like, look, this is the policy. We're going to see it through. We don't have any instinct on walking away from it. The average tariff, this is coming from NBC News, the average tariff faced by dozens of nations that Trump has, quote unquote, targeted. Again, the language is always really key to look into. He's targeting them. Yeah. Remember, these are reciprocal tariffs. In other words, he's saying that they actually put the same tariff on that American goods are tariffed on the way into there. Anyway, Donald Trump has targeted is about 29%. That's the average tariff rate across the board, with many as high as 40%. And of course, they posted the full list, which there is a link to if you guys want that. In fact, I'll just go ahead and save the link right now. I will send it over. If you have curiosity, we'll put it over on kyleseraphin.com for the show notes. The Chinese imports are going to carry a cumulative rate of 104% because of new tariffs that Trump imposed this year. That's what has to happen, they said. Listen, China has been toyed with and played with and gently massaged for a very long time. They have long been the more dangerous of the foes. If you listen to the people on the political left, it seems like they have a closer ideology with them, which is like a totalitarianism and a leftism, right? But in reality, they've been hawking Russia. When in point of fact, as far as I can tell from anybody who works counterintelligence, anybody who looks at the actual threats that exist militaristically, Russia is not America's biggest foe and hasn't been for quite a while. The folks that I knew that played in the Russia intel game, they used to say that Russia is far too small and it punches well above its weight because it has the remnants of a superpower between the intel apparatus and all the money put into it, the technologies for, spying and capabilities like that, the hacking capabilities, but they never have the ability to project power across the globe because they don't have the finances or the strength of the economy that the Chinese do. And the Chinese are far more manipulative in what they do. So the question then becomes, what do you do with this? How do you make it work? This is our Treasury Secretary giving his take on what we're going to do with the Chinese and how you have to go and how you have to bring them along. So here he was talking on Fox Business the other day.
Maria, I think it's unfortunate that the Chinese actually don't want to come and negotiate because they are the worst offenders in the international trading system. They have the most imbalanced economy in the history of the modern world. And I can tell you that this escalation is a loser for them, that they have some very smart, the economists, the academicians, technocrats within their bureaucracy, and they would be telling the leadership that we do not have the edge here. They are the surplus country, that their exports to the U.S. are 5 times our exports to China. So they can raise their tariffs, but so what?
I kind of like that. That does feel like a sort of Trumpian attitude towards it. Kevin O'Leary had kind of an even more aggressive stance on that, sitting on CNN. Again, they do get some intelligent people over there, but folks who have worked in business, we actually know some folks in our family who had business in China, and because of the way that they practice business, don't want to do it anymore. If you're a halfway decent person, you look at the way that it works, you start seeing like this is a rigged game. There's some whistleblower testimony that's supposed to be set up for being on the Hill today, that Facebook basically kowtowed to them. A lot of people have gone into China, and because of the way that they've set up their rules, it is very, very one-sided. One of the nastiest things is that if you keep intellectual property on computer servers, the Chinese government requires access to all computer technology that is on their soil. This has been a big deal for those of you who have, let's say, Google accounts, which is probably everybody or darn near it. Right? Some of you have gotten divorced from it and you're trying to do it, but it's hard. I mean, there's a lot of, history and tech. It's very convenient to use Google products. If you store data with places like Google or any of these technology companies that were doing the swab and the spit in a bucket, the question was who's going to buy the data of all of 23andMe when it goes out of business? Forget that. The Chinese already got all of it because they have to have access under Chinese law. This is a massive liability. I would go and do defensive briefings in an unclassified setting where we would sit down with business owners and say, if you're doing business in China and you are saving sensitive either intellectual property or you are saving things that are, let's say, related to American contracts, it is assumed that the Chinese government has sucked all of that up because the technology not only exists, it is required under Chinese law. So if you're using data servers or warehouses or anything over there, that happens. The server farms in China are 100% required to be penetrated by the Chinese government. So Kevin O'Leary's take on this is a little bit more aggressive. Until this comes into balance, yeah, it'll be awkward. And by the way, everybody sort of knew this, didn't we? How much of this crap do we have that is Chinesium, to use the word from earlier? How much of the stuff in your room right now where you're sitting is Chinesium? Most of the stuff, I've got Apple products here. I've got one that's made in Australia. I've got a soundboard made in Australia, so it's not. The paper goods are not. This monitor arm, this microphone arm that I use, it's actually made in the United States, so that's pretty cool. When I can find it, I do. But oftentimes, the things that are holding my speakers, Chinesium, pot metal, God knows what, some Chinese off-brand, tripods. It's difficult to find things that are American and that are actually even close to affordable. So one of the sponsors we had here, I just want to kind of go on the side for a second. One of the sponsors, if you ever want to see a side-by-side, find a company that will offer you an overseas manufactured good and the same good manufactured for the United States military under Berry compliance, which means it has to be U.S. sourced and U.S. parts and created in America. And look at the cost difference. You can buy like one of these silent backpacks that I've got over here, and they're like $300 and they have a good product. If you want that same thing Berry compliant, so it's U.S. materials, U.S. source, created by U.S. labor, it's $800 to $1,200. It's easily 2, but usually 3 to 4 times the cost to do it here. That's a real problem because we're dealing with such an imbalance. That's what they're able to do. And yes, do they utilize slave labor? Of course. And then they also have this massive imbalance. So anyway, Kevin O'Leary's talking about they're happy to steal our technology. By the way, a lot of this stuff that they have, when you go and you contract with a factory over in China to build your thing, our former producer, Ryan Matta, was talking about this. He had something built over there. And the assumption is that all of the things you see on Amazon, they're probably made in the same factories. They all have different names slapped on top of them, Chinese characters. You guys have seen this, right? Where you have, it's like Lilu Lalu. And you're like, what the heck is that? And they're like, Babu Bibu. They're goofy names from these like goofy non-real brands. Feng Shui Juju. And you're like, why do they have multiple consonants and nonsense? These are not even marketable, right? All of those products are made by the exact same person. And so the game on Amazon, the game on online marketing, whether it be TAMU or any of these other things, all they're trying to do is who can access the customer first and cheapest with the most like perceived quality. But they're the same thing. It's all the same product made in the exact same place. If you guys have ever done the order side by side, I know people do comparisons. You can literally get them and open them up and be like, same packaging, slightly different labeling, different screen print, slightly different color injected into this thing. This is orange and this one's like a half-ass red and this one's blue, but they are manufactured identically because the process is the same. So all of this stuff is kind of wild. All right, anyway, O'Leary thinks we should be even more aggressive, and that might be the answer.
104% tariffs in China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it, and sell it back here. Never has an administration.
400% tariffs? What would that look like?
I want Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. It's just not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. I have nothing against the Chinese people. They brought great literacy, art, and tech to the world. The government cheats and steals, and finally, an administration, you may not like Trump, you may not like his style or his rhetoric, finally, an administration that puts up and says enough. 400% tariffs tomorrow morning. He'll tell you why. Xi can only stay the supreme leader if people are employed. If we wipe out any business there, because we are still 39% of all consumables on Earth and 25% of the world's GDP, America is the #1 economy on earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
Well, hold on a second, Kevin. Well,
60-
I hear you, but hold on. If we're talking about people, the average consumer, not necessarily the head honchos of businesses all across the globe, can they withstand the pressure of that sort of tax on the goods?
It's short-lived. There will be.
But what's your timeline compared to, you don't know the average American's timeline, what they can actually survive. There's people right now who can't survive
400% tomorrow morning, cheese on an airplane to Washington to cut a deal.
Here's the other thing. How much of this Chinese crap do you really need? You got to do an assessment on that. How much of this is convenience and luxury that is making things affordable to you? You have the ability to buy it, so you do. But if it wasn't affordable, would you make the same choice? And I think that's one of these things that we don't often look at. This has been coming for so long. This has been coming for basically all of my adult life, as far as I can tell. The other piece that people do not realize, which is the national security implications, is that on a regular basis, we are putting money into American universities for all kinds of projects. National Science Foundation, National Institutes of Health grants. We are putting things out there that fuel American research and knowledge. We are putting significant resources behind, oftentimes, ethnically Chinese or ethnically other cultures, people who came to the United States, brought their intellectual capabilities, became citizens after a period of time. And I've actually investigated these people, so I'm not speaking ignorantly here. And they still have allegiances back home to wherever that home is. And when it's China, it's almost total. So what you'll find is American professors, American researchers will set up, do business in America to learn a technology. Let's say it's carbon nanotubes. Let's say it is geospatial supercomputing algorithms. It doesn't really matter. Some of them have military implications, some of them do not. And the Chinese go, oh, well, the Americans with this massive infrastructure of universities and capabilities there are going to put a couple of $1 million in to set something up and make breakthroughs, incremental breakthroughs in intellectual capabilities and IP, intellectual properties. And then the Chinese government approaches this person and says, hey, you've done a really good job. Your research is solid. We'd like to give you $10 million to duplicate that exact same research in China at a lab that we are going to help you set up. What do you think? It's known as technology transfer. It is legal, but it is investigated by the FBI with no ability to stop it. None. There's not any pressure in statecraft. These people can go over there, and as long as they are not taking classified technologies, which is rarely the case because they're very specific about what they target, they get these professors, they get these people, and it doesn't matter if they're a U.S.-born professor who's working at Harvard or it's some sort of Chinese-born professor who's naturalized the United States who's working in Virginia. It does not matter. They will take these guys, set them up with millions of dollars in grant money from China, 1,000 Talents program and so on. They will set these labs up and they will basically copy. And again, once you've built your lab in China, the Chinese government has access to everything and they duplicate the work. And we paid for it. And we don't get the exclusive benefit for more than a few minutes. It happens in biotechnology. You saw guys, I have friends who have arrested guys doing this when they actually leave with U.S. Specific IP and they transport it and we can catch them in the act of leaving. We sometimes can prosecute them, but oftentimes they just get off with a better deal. And that's why I feel good about this. Actually, I don't understand why the hell we do any of this stuff anymore. This is an ABC story. There's multiple news organizations reporting it. The Trump administration halted $1 billion in federal funding for Cornell. Good. Halt all the funding for all the universities. I don't know why the United States federal government is involved in it. We have state schools and we have private schools. We have no federal universities. The money behind it is crazy to me. And by the way, there's almost no accountability. At the National Science Foundation, where I used to go and have a liaison contact, I think they've got like 6 or 8 special agents. I met the special agent in charge of the National Science Foundation for their investigative end, and it's like one lady, and she's got like a half dozen guys that work for her, and that's it. For the entire National Science Foundation, which you guys could probably look up in the chat. I didn't go and grab the numbers, but they give out $4, $5, $10, $20 million at a time, and nobody is there to be able to investigate the fraud, waste, and abuse. So $1 billion in funding for Cornell? Who knew that we had $1 billion going to Cornell? $790 million for Northwestern outside of Chicago. Like premier schools with $1 billion plus endowments are getting billions of dollars from the United States federal government. That's your money. That's my money. For what? For people that have dubious loyalties to the United States that are willing to sell us out left and right? and who also go out and train people to hate America. They're training more Bernie Sanders than they are training like, Garrett O'Boyles, who went to Marquette for whatever it's worth. All right, we're going to get more into that, and we're going to get more into some of these stories. Like I said, we got some court cases, we got some other stuff. We'll get into the LARPtopia, or whatever the heck this Department of Grifter influencer thing that's going on, because it is nauseating. But first, we're going to talk about something that doesn't nauseate me. In fact, it got me pretty booted up today. How about we talk about Blackout Coffee? You can go to blackoutcoffee.com/KYLE. As you guys know, we've been telling you about Blackout Coffee for a couple of months. If you haven't tried it, we're going to break it down right here. It's not another coffee brand. It's an American-made coffee brand, not coming out of Chinese, no Chinesium at all. Company built on hard work and grit and American values. 6 years ago, these guys were working out of their home garage. Today, they're running a 64,000 square foot warehouse. They're roasting their beans in-house so they can check it out. They are packing them themselves. They're employing over 30 hardworking Americans. There's no corporate nonsense, no woke garbage. It's coffee and damn good coffee. I'm actually due for a refill. I'm going to do the 5 pound because I don't think I'm a 12 ounce guy. I'll just burn through those bags. I've got, what is that? I've got Brutal Awakenings. Is that what it is? No, I've got Morning Reaper on the shelf there. I may have to break into my emergency stash. Folks, if you guys want to check it out, this morning, my daughter, who's 19 months old, with no pants on because she's potty training, was in my arms when we made coffee, and she goes, oh, as the steam come off, she said, hot. This is how you do it. You guys want to get awake in the morning, get it fired up, grind it up, and get it going. It's not just about making a great cup of coffee. It's about supporting Americans and the American dream, the opposite of this Chinesium crap. If you want a company that was built right the right way, no shortcuts, no woke nonsense, no woke beans. It's a kick in the beans. How about that, right? We believe in hard work here, real American values. So if you guys want to check it out, blackoutcoffee.com/KYLE. Use that promo code KYLE, 20% off your first order. That's the proposition for you. Figure out what you like and then set yourself up with a renewable. Coffee is one of those few things that you're going to get. You're going to drink a bunch of it when you do, if you're a coffee drinker. And by the way, I didn't start drinking coffee until I was quite a bit later in life. Anyway, blackoutcoffee.com/KYLE. Stop drinking weak coffee. Stop being weak in any way. Just get it done. That's how we want to do it. Okay, here's things that I don't like about the global market. I want to show this one. These are some stories that we're just going to kind of touch on, mostly because I went like, oh my God, I am glad to live in America. Even in the worst scenario, even under a Joe Biden, I'd rather live in America. This is that story I told you that was coming up there. Chinese nursing home blaze kills 20 people. One person was arrested. This is a Reuters story. So this is international news. We don't touch on a lot of this stuff. This was just a reminder to me about how much I don't want to be in places like this. This is why people like Rosie O'Donnell like leaving the country, or Tom Hanks. I'm like, I guess if you're a millionaire and you don't have to worry about anything, maybe. But if you have to worry about subpar subpar buildings that will burn everyone that you love alive. 20 people killed in a fire broke out in an apartment complex for elderly people. It was a nursing home. The Chinese don't really care when they're old, by the way. This is another problem. This is the reason why COVID was always really suspicious, because it targeted old people. It was our palate cleanse yesterday, right? Isn't it interesting that China, which is about to have a massive surplus male population that is going to be on the dole of the government, suddenly had a virus come out of it that killed off a bunch of old people? It felt like a dry run to me, or it felt like something that they wanted to be able to use if they needed to. The Chinese are in a real bad spot because of their one-child policy. And if you guys don't know the historical significance, basically my whole lifetime, the Chinese government limited the number of kids you could have. They were trying to limit their population growth. And so everybody said, well, I'd rather have a male child than a female child. The problem is eventually those male childs grow up. And you have now a surplus male population sort of in my age bracket. Between like 30 and let's call 50, something like that. And these guys are going to start aging out of the workforce. So what do you do with them? They don't have families. They don't have wives. They don't have children to take care of them. They are only going to lean on the state. And so there's only two real ways that you get rid of surplus extra males. One of them is a war. You go to war and you get them all killed off. That happened in Europe a lot. It opens up things. The other possibility is that you have a plague or some sort of a massive disease that kills off people in a certain age bracket. And it always looked like we were dealing with that problem coming up. They don't seem to care much about the elderly. Listen, I look at other nations and I consider how important the people are in their country based on how important they consider the people in their country. If you have 150 people trampled to death at Mecca every year that they do the Hajj, every single time they do that, I go, well, you don't value human life the same way. I've never seen that story at a concert in the United States. I've seen like 2 people trampled to death, 1 guy overrun by security. This story in China, nursing home set ablaze, it would be one person died from smoke inhalation, 2 firefighters hospitalized. 20 people tells you the value of what they've got going on. And below it, you see 113 people dead after a Dominican nightclub roof collapse. This is on like all the major papers for some reason. I don't know why. All the left-wing sources, this is ABC, CBS, NBC, like they've all got it. CNN, they all wanted to talk about 113 people dead in the Dominican Republic. Okay. Well, let's talk about it. Let's show what that looks like, because this is what it looked like from inside the club. And this is the difference between living in America, where we actually care about what goes on, and doing things that are Chinesium or Dominican, construction, where the roof will literally fall and kill 100+ people while they're listening to freaking music. They were just out listening to this music. This is like pretty horrific stuff. So just stand by. It's going to be on the screen in a second. There it is. And then boom, it drops. And that's the aftermath of it. I'm going to turn the volume down because it's not really relevant to our discussion here. Look at that. Like the entire roof collapsed and killed everybody that was inside of there, and they're pulling people out of the rubble. When was the last time you saw something like that happen in the United States? You know, for all of the frustrations that we have with building codes and the government getting involved, I've got a meme that's sitting on there. It's the founders of the guys signing the Constitution, and they're sitting around the table and they're all wearing like the knee-high socks and stuff like that. They're wearing the tricorn hats, and it says, I'm thinking about painting my house today. And this other guy says, but did you check in and ask the government? And yeah, that's nauseating. And I don't want that. I don't want it for you. I don't want it for me. But this is the other end of it. Nobody checks in, and a bunch of people are hanging out, having a great time, and the ceiling flip and fall. I don't know if you guys saw this. I'll put it up over on locals as well, and it'll definitely be in the social media feeds out there. This one's coming from RT, so I had to pull it from the Russian television source. We're talking about the ceiling literally dropped, and in about 3 seconds, everybody in the room was dead. So maybe there are some places, like I said, I hate federal government. I hate state inspectors. I don't want to be told what I can do on my own property. But we have so much faith and trust in our system that it's going to work the right way. We really do. And we're really blessed that the people basically operate in pretty much good faith versus what the alternative is. So I told you, I didn't want to live in a third world nation. I don't want to live in a developing nation. I don't want to live in a place where they don't value human life. And that's why I don't live in New Mexico anymore, by the way. That's why I haven't gone back. I really liked New Mexico when I was there. My time in Las Cruces was great working for the Bureau. In so much as I had a beautiful home. I was set far back from everybody. I had mountains. We had public lands. We had mule deer in our backyard. We had an awesome setup. We really did. I had very cool neighbors. I used to live in Albuquerque for a little while. And this is going on right now. This is another headline. New Mexico governor mobilizes the National Guard for what? Big disaster? They had a flood? Some sort of terrorist attack? No. To tackle the emergency of crime. Because she's a shit governor. She's a terrible governor. They're training 60 to 70 troops already underway. The governor's office is trying to move National Guards troops in to relieve the Albuquerque PD, who basically, every time that I've worked there, and I've worked there as a federal agent, we would just listen to the scanners, and there'd be like a call out for SWAT almost every day. You'd look in the sky and you'd be like, oh, shoot, there's helicopters. What's going on? Flip on the scanner. Oh, there's a barricaded situation. And some, APD guy, Albuquerque Police Department, would tap some guy in the head who was holding his wife hostage with a gun to her head. And you're going like, how can this continue? It is considered, we had 3 people have their vehicles broken into. This goes back to 2020. During COVID, my buddies and I were out running cases out there looking for terrorists, like a legit, real terrorist subject. Of all the cases we did, this guy sounded the most credible. And he was in New Mexico. There's some real weird stuff that goes on in New Mexico. And anybody from New Mexico knows exactly what I'm talking about. Albuquerque is a beautiful city. Like, for what it is a really cool place. It has the potential of being a neat place to live. They've got local culture. They've got food that is unique and indigenous to the area. They've got heritage that goes back 500 years. They've got people that claim to be related to conquistadors who came there and settled it with the original Spanish, and the people who are, related to the indigenous tribes. It's a cool, neat place. It's weird. It's not like anywhere else. But it's the land of entrapment, where people are desperate. And they're sad. When I was stationed there on the military base, I drove off a base right away and immediately dealt with basically zombies. There's a reason why they shot the movie or the TV series Breaking Bad in the Albuquerque area. And it was very true to life, like to the disturbing level where people from New Mexico were like, this is hard to watch. This is like just going down to the corner store for me. This is like going to my own grocery store. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on there. And when you have to call out the National Guard because your state police is underpaid, you got rid of qualified immunity, which there may be some differing opinions on that. But let me just tell you this. You definitely want police officers to feel that they will be protected by the state if they are actually within the scope of doing their job. If they have to go out and get into a shooting with someone on the highway, which after watching and listening to, like news in New Mexico for, let's say, 2 years while I was in the Air Force, another maybe 2.5 years while I was doing the FBI thing, let's call it almost 5 years worth of observing it. It happens like weekly or monthly at the lowest level. How many times do you hear about a interstate like chase and shooting that goes on in your state? It is daily news. One of the first things that I saw when I was living in Las Cruces in the headline, local news story, you've never heard this. Homeless guy cut off the head of another homeless guy and was playing soccer with it in the park where the kids play. That's how crazy New Mexico is. So why are we, this is what failed policies. And by the way, they keep electing this lady. She's part of the Lujan Grissom crime family that has basically been there forever. They've got the Senate locked up, the Senate seats, they got the state, and they got the national offices. So this is why I'm just so worried about this. And by the way, this is just straight up, they are a Democrat testing lab for how they can roll things out. I've sounded the alarm on this before. I told you, what works in New Mexico, they will try somewhere else. You guys want that? It kind of reminds me, the really, really bad idea theater coming out of Democrats. We used to have somebody that had like a pretty good voice about talking about these things. Kind of miss hearing that guy. This is 2019. You remember 2019, Dan Bongino? He also didn't really care for that. Kind of a different guy sitting in the seat right now over there at the FBI. But this is the OG version of it. This is the person that I went out and spoke to first. You tell me, where's this guy at?
No, you're absolutely right. If you're a Democrat, how do you look at yourself in the mirror? And if you're one of the media bootlickers with your lips surgically attached to the ass of the Democrat Party, how do you get up in the morning and look at yourself? Sean, you just pointed out one. I'll just give you one major. You're all hypocrites, you Democrats. I'm not talking about voting Democrats in the country. I'm talking about the Hill swamp rat Democrats. I'm sure there's good people out there who genuinely care. But the Hill is infested with TDS level 6 Trump derangement syndrome. You told us for 2 years that foreign collusion in an election mattered. Yet we know for a fact, facts, liberals, those things you have a really hard time with, that the Ukrainians colluded with the Democrats to try to damage Trump in the election. You don't give a damn about that. We heard today, by the way, that a decorated military officer who claims to have some information that you can't scrutinize him, Sean. You can't, and thank him for his service. He deserves it. But having said that, it's funny how Mike Flynn, not only can we scrutinize Mike Flynn, we should crap on Mike Flynn at every single opportunity if you're a liberal. That's okay. You liberals are frauds. America's tired of you. I'm tired of you. Hey, Sean, one more thing just to hit on Geraldo's point too. And by just in the last few years, we've had the Democrats, now I had to make a list, defend MS-13, infanticide. We had Bill Maher calling for recessions, and now they're defending a rapist, murderous, pig, dog, cockroach who are special forces, and our dogs were braver than this guy. And
where'd that guy go? Remember him? He had some pretty strong words for people, and now you're going to have a stand down in the Phoenix office because Bongino's going to go out there and visit them, and they're not going to go out and round up criminals and criminal aliens right in the border. They're right next door, by the way, Arizona. I'm a little bit close to that. My folks live in Arizona. I used to live right next door to it. I've run emergency calls with the Air Force when I was working out at Davis-Monthan for a little while. We ran emergency calls in Tucson. It's an ugly place then. That's going back to like 2011, 2012. You're going to go ahead and do a stand down when we're supposed to be deporting people hard and moving them out? Well, obviously, they're not going to stand out everywhere, right? They're not going to stand out over on the DHS side of the coin, right? They wouldn't do that. This is what DHS has got going on. Luckily, they got Border Barbie. She looks very nicely dressed up, even though someone handed her that rifle. I pray to God this rifle is not loaded. If you haven't seen this clip yet, you're under a rock. This is what they're doing with our funds. Like, look, mixed bag, Trump, tariffs, liking it. Economic policy, liking it. DOD policy, I'm on board. Law enforcement, DHS, AG, weak. FBI, where's the reform? Where's the guy that was sitting in that Fox chair? Here's Kristi Noem. She's in charge of DHS. She apparently is ICE police, or police ICE, holding a rifle like it's about to bite her.
Here we are with Marco and Brian today. They're letting me roll with them. We're going to go out and pick up somebody who I think is got charges of human trafficking. We earlier had an op that swept up somebody who was wanted for murder. So appreciate the good work that they do every day, and we appreciate them working to make America safe.
Oh, That's what we're doing. Okay, so we're just going to hold. We're going to hold this carbine, probably select fire BORTAC rifle, and point it at some guy's head. I'm just going to leave this on the screen here. If you guys want to snapshot it, this is a woman pointing a rifle at some dude with sleeve tattoos head, and another guy with his earpiece in, standing there going like, "Man, I really wish I hadn't given that rifle over to this lady. She's a freaking liability." What are they doing? What is that about? Like, can anyone tell me? How about this one? This also was put out. This is Libs at TikTok. This is Chaya, whatever her name is, Rychek, who I don't have any problem with. Like, I don't know what the fuck she's doing here. Excuse my. So what is she doing here? Seriously. She's sitting in an ICE unit. This is like a Bearcat or something. And she is taking pictures, selfies, with a beanie on. So is it cold? Because it's not cold right now in most parts of the places where you're going to be rounding up bad guys. Is she doing the interior patrol? She's up in Minnesota looking for the snow Mexican creep in. I just snapshotted a little piece of AI because I asked the question, what's the federal statute that covers an officer wearing a federal officer badge without authorization, which, by the way, is a federal crime. It's a misdemeanor. Do you know how I know about that misdemeanor? Because I was accused of that by the FBI. Because I put a picture of the FBI's badge on the label of my podcast, and it said Kyle Seraphin, former FBI agent, and there was a picture of the badge. By the way, that badge is used on challenge coins for retired agents. It's used for all kinds of things because we own the design. But you know what you don't get to do? You don't get to wear it like you're an ICE officer, which is exactly what that badge says. Wearing a federal officer badge without authorization is illegal under 18 U.S.C. 716. It specifically addresses covering the unauthorized transfer, transportation, reception of counterfeit or genuine official insignias or uniforms unless they deputized her, and I don't know how you would do that. They put her through FLETC in a 2-second little thing. She's impersonating a federal officer. Is punishable by up to 6 months or a fine. I'm just saying, whoever knowingly transfers, transports, receives in interstate or foreign commerce a counterfeit insignia or knowingly transfers an individual, knowing that such individual is not authorized to possess it under the law of the place in which the badge is the official insignia or uniform. You can't wear this and pretend to be that thing. And she's going like she's out on raids? What the shit? Seriously, what are we doing? Who voted for this stuff? This is crazy. It is a defense if you are doing something for a dramatic presentation, such as theatrical, film, or television production, or a recreational purposes, if you're doing some sort of acting. So is that what we are doing? Because that's the only cover for this, by the way. That's the defense from prosecution. You'd have to be doing it as an actor. Seem like we got a couple of them out there. How about this? We'll do the acting commissioner. Huh? You like that? We got a segue here from the acting IRS commissioner. Resigned because the Treasury is going to share immigrant, aka illegal immigrant, tax data with ICE to find out who needs to be taken out. Well, that doesn't seem like a real problem. Why would you have a problem with a government agency giving information to another government agency in order to enforce federal law? You'd think that'd be like the IRS actually has their own criminal investigations division. I know people who used to work there. They're decent people. We've had one on the show here before, have we not? Go check out Aaron Gogley. Now, there are federal secrecy laws about tax information. In fact, working with the IRS was one of the worst people you could work with as a federal agent. They would never be useful to you on a task force. They always hid stuff, at least historically. Until now, they can do all kinds of wild stuff. And if you listen to what I talk about with Aaron Gogley in the interview, that goes back probably maybe within the last year or so, you'd have to dig back into the archives of the channel. I don't think anybody else has interviewed him at length the way that we did. He talks about all kinds of stuff that they can do. The acting IRS commissioner is resigning because they don't want to hand over information and expected to resign from the agency after it disclosed that it agreed to share tax data from immigrants with Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, that's ICE, to identify and deport undocumented immigrants, aka illegal aliens, in violation of, Title VIII? According to a source familiar with the situation and a statement from the Treasury Department, Melanie Krause is leaving the agency due to a disagreement over the Treasury Department's decision to share IRS tax data. Another one bites the dust. She's been leading the organization through a time of extraordinary change, and as we focus on IT modernization, that'll be funny, and a reorganization of the agency to better serve the taxpayer, sure. We're in the midst of a breakdown of data silos that have for too long stood in the way of identifying fraud, waste, abuse, and bringing criminals to justice, so saith the Treasury spokesperson, in a statement. They managed to get into the deferred resignation program, the FORC, Washington Post was the first one. She might be out as soon as the end of this month. Okay, and 2 other people left because of this. Because you didn't really root out anything. And this goes to the broader problem. This goes to the problem with putting someone in that you're really a big fan of. Let's say we get the best IRS director out there. Is that what they're called? Director? They have a chief privacy officer? That's kind of funny. Yeah, she's been the acting director, right? Let's say you get commissioner. Sorry, she's a commissioner. Let's say you get the best commissioner of the IRS in there. Let's say you get the best attorney general, which I don't think we got necessarily, but I don't have strong feelings about what Bondi's done other than it's been like a lot of Fox and not a lot of other things. She's done a lot of media hits. She might be getting a hosting gig. She might as well hold her own show. She could just do her press disseminations. We're seeing a lot of like announcements from Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, including one this morning that said, listen, in this business, you can't ask people just to trust you. You got to have results, but we're just asking you to trust us. Had an FBI agent reach out to me and say, guy's asking for an awful lot of trust for someone who hasn't earned any trust in the job yet. Fact check true. Actions speak louder than words. This whole I trust Dan Bongino, why? I'm just saying, why? Why does he get any extra credibility when he stepped into a space and previously he was out there saying this? What about our man Kash Patel, who I'd like to consider a friend? Previously, he's told people that are friends of mine that we were friends. Recently, where's this guy? Where the hell is this Kash Patel? Because I'm going to show you where he is right now. But this is him on the Sean Ryan Show. Most of you guys probably remember this. Government creep, Deep State Museum. Is that ringing any bells?
Then we need to decrease what I call government creep with personnel. The FBI's footprint has gotten so freaking big. And the biggest problem the FBI has come out of its intel shops. I'd break that component out of it. I'd shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopening the next day as a museum of the deep state. And I'd take the 7,000 employees that work in that building and send them across America to chase down criminals. Go be cops. You're cops. Go be cops. Go chase down murderers and rapists and drug dealers and violent offenders. What do you need 7,000 people there for? Same thing with DOJ. What are all these people doing here? Looking for their next government promotion, looking for their next fancy government title, looking for their parachute out of government. So while you're bringing in the right people, you also have to shrink government.
So a massive government reform.
Yeah. And you got to work with Congress to eliminate the billets. This is one of the things we did when I was deputy DNI. We got to DNI and I was like, okay, what do all these people do? We've got the CIA, so why do I have analysts doing the CIA's job here? Why do I have a floor of them? Like, give me a good answer. I don't know everything. I don't know a lot. But if you can give me an answer that satisfies their existence, I'm all in. Well, we just have our own people. Okay, well, now we don't. And we went to Congress and zeroed out a bunch of billets.
Where's that guy? I mean that like really in the nicest possible way. Where did he go? We gave that plan, by the way. Have we talked about this here? We had a 20-page PowerPoint of step-by-step instructions on not how you would go about doing the things that he laid out in his own vision and the personnel you might use to do it. And about 3 of the 20 have been tapped. And about 1 of those ideas looks like it's getting implemented. I want to be hopeful. It's not the way that I naturally exist. I'm naturally a pessimist. And I'm all about actions. Like, show me what you're doing. Don't tell me. Always. The people that come out there and brief you, they're usually doing it because they're trying to BS you so they can get away with doing what they're doing more. Is that what we want? It's not what I want. I don't. I'm going to show you why this is so important in just a second. Folks, if you're watching the program over on Rumble, make sure you're giving a thumbs up while you're sitting there listening. I'd appreciate it. It's rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. You can always catch the replay there if you like, but you might as well do it on Spotify. If you're watching over on YouTube, same story. We see you out there. YouTube, folks. YouTube.com/@Kyle Seraphin. Same thing, @Kyle Seraphin over on X. If you want to give us the plug there. The locals channels where we interact after the fact. I'm going to try to go get some gun shooting. I got to go shake the dust off some more. KyleSeraphin.com if you want to be part of that. Again, you can subscribe there. And Spotify is the easiest place to watch after the fact. It's KyleSeraphinShow.com. You can send that link to a friend. Very easy. They can check it out if they want to be part of it. By the way, somebody said, hey, I want to believe this morning. Yeah, look, I have it on the wall, folks. It's my homage to the X-Files. It's over on the wall. And it's a reminder of the other studio we worked out of. But it's also a reminder that I do want to believe. I just have a hard time with it because I know the other pieces. And also, there's Johnny Utah on there on the wall. If you guys don't know what that picture is, you guys go back and look at the old studio set. There was some fun stuff in there. It's not that I don't want them to be successful. I do. Here's the problem. They just promoted Stephen Jensen, and we talked about it a couple times. I'm going to keep talking about it. Here's why. This testimony, which came from the Weaponization Committee, was highlighted by the Oversight Project. Oversight Project, either formerly or currently associated with the Heritage Foundation. Mike Howell over there pushing stuff like this. This is its answer to what is your reaction to talking about January 6th. Here's what Stephen Jensen said in his own words, a man that they're saying, well, he didn't swear, so that couldn't have been him. He never swears. He's such a good man. George Hill must have been a liar. Here's what he said about January 6th. I have numerous quote. Sorry, let me just start quote, and I won't do any editorials in his actual language. I have numerous reactions to that. The one that I will stand by is the test of time. When all of the cases are fully adjudicated and in the light of day of all the evidence, and the American people, the American public rather, will know what we did, the right thing for the right reason, in the right manner, not only to uphold our system of government, but to protect the institutions that were put in place for the United States citizens. The FBI wouldn't be part of criminal conduct. We don't support it. We investigate it. Can we do a quick fact check here? End quote. Okay, fact check. That's not true. The FBI has been involved in criminal conduct. That's been proven through Crossfire Hurricane and others. How about Charlie McGonigal, who accepted bags of cash in the counterintelligence space? There are people in the FBI who have conducted themselves in criminal manners, for sure. Here's what he also says, quote, we had a surge across multiple divisions to develop a strategy and implement a strategy for January 6th investigations. They weren't necessarily T2Y to me, but they fell under my purview in my role as the, for lack of a better term, the headquarters on-scene commander for a unified response to January 6th. So multiple divisions had personnel contributing to that mission. Stephen Jensen, as end quote, Stephen Jensen stated that he was the guy that ran January 6th investigations out of the headquarter unit. Like, in his own words, irrelevant. Here's another piece of it. Is there a difference between domestic terrorism cases and a domestic terrorism event? He said, well, there can be. You can open up domestic terrorism cases. Traditionally, a 266, you guys will know that if you listen, 266 Oscars are all the cases that they open on the J6ers on an incident, but it's not typical to do that. So the question then comes in, is it possible for an event such as January 6th to be seen as a domestic terrorism event, but then the individual cases resulting from that may not be domestic terrorism cases? The answer is yes. Of course, yes. And what they did, which if you listen here, or you know anything about January 6th, they opened 2 parallel investigations. They opened criminal trespass cases. They opened assault on a federal officer, which I think is a justifiable case. They entered remaining and parading and other misdemeanor crap charges. And then they opened an intelligence case, a 266 terrorism case, 266-Oscar. This guy was the one who was in charge of setting the rules for going after these prosecutions. How do I know? Because he said it himself. Here's more of Mr. Jensen's words. He said, quote, so like I said, the clear, bright line agreed upon between myself, the FBI, and DOJ was individuals or their devices identified inside of the Capitol was action to field offices for further investigation outside the Capitol, barring what was considered plus-up factors from the Department of Justice, assault on federal officers, assault on media members, damage to specific property on Capitol grounds. They didn't have those additional enhancements. Mr. Gates, that's Matt Gates from Florida. He says, who developed the bright line? Who were the people involved in the discussion to set up this bright line? And Mr. Jensen said, so that would be myself, in consultation with Assistant Director Jill Sanborn, the DOJ CTS attorneys. At this time, sir, I believe it was Matt Blue, who was my direct counterpart over there, but there could have been other attorneys that were also present, who set up the bright line that decided who they were going to prosecute for January 6 cases. Stephen Jensen, his own words, they just promoted him. Who promoted him? This guy. Looks cool, man. That's Kash Patel right there, hanging out with members of HRT, doing a selection for the next HRT team. I almost went to that selection, by the way. In 2020, I was prepared to go. They canceled it for COVID. I was actually going to go to the gray team selection, so it's a slightly different selection. You know what they're doing there? This is what our tax dollars are paying for. You guys ready? What are they doing? There it is. They're hanging out in a boat, right? You can see that. There's water behind them. They're doing a water selection. And let's just do a helicopter of it. So there's a bunch of selectees who are going through. These are FBI special agents who want to be hostage rescue operators, and they're like hanging out in a paddle boat and getting hit with a bunch of waves. Those boats are multi-million-dollar crafts that they're in. I've been on them. One of them's called Harambe. They're these big, super fast, go-fast boats. They hang out in the hangar at Quantico. They're really cool. If you can have them, they've got like 4 major, or maybe 3 big engines behind them. It's insanely powerful. and these guys are out paddling. Why would you need to paddle for HRT? I'm going to turn the volume down on the helicopter there. Why would you need to paddle anything as an FBI agent? There's the selectees. They're all pulling as hard as they can. Why would you do that? The only water mission that I'm aware of is going after the back door of Roger Stone's house when they tipped it off to CNN. That's the only one I'm aware of. There's just no reason that these guys go through combat dive programs. They go to parts of BUDS. If you guys don't realize this, they go to BUDS. I actually had a boss who was an HRT. He was a team captain or a team leader for like 10 years. He was on the teams over there, and he was like, "Hey man, if you go out for selection, they might actually send you to like dive medical training." And I was like, "Oh, I've already done that. I'm a dive medic." And he's like, "Really?" He's like, "Well, they might send you to dive school too." And I was like, "I've already got a combat dive bubble from the military." And he's like, "Really?" I go, "Yeah, I know. They don't really give files. Like there is no like file." The thing that Julie Kelly said, she looked into the background on someone. There's no like major personnel file that says who you are and all the things you've done. That doesn't exist. Not in the FBI. There's Cass Patel, just hanging out, wearing cool guy gray. Remember when when mass gray was the big thing that they pushed out there? I'm sure they use these just for training. Why do you need to be in gray? Why do you need to be in camouflage at all if you're the FBI director? You don't get to hang out with the dudes when you're the director. Like, come down and see it. Get back to work. You need to wear a suit. We didn't sign up for people to be wearing t-shirts. We didn't sign up for this. You don't get to walk around in a don't get dead. You don't get a 20-man security detail. You talk tough for years. It's time for you to get to work. That means you have to wear a suit. It sucks. It's the same thing that I thought about. So the reason why I don't want to go do that job, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's inconvenient to your lifestyle of being a bro who gets to go sit on Sean Ryan and tell people all the problems. And for all the people that are worried about shooting inside of the tent, which there are people, this is why I'm not concerned, because the opposition is Bernie Sanders and Jasmine Crockett, and they are not exactly getting things going on. It just don't make no sense. Check this out. Here's Jasmine Crockett. She's worried about Donald Trump playing golf. I kid you not. How many days did Biden spend on vacation or at the beach? Like, totally irrelevant, right? Like, it just doesn't matter. Here's Jasmine Crockett trying to make something matter for like any reason that they can try to stick, and it's not going to work. This is why I don't mind about trying to say, hey, let's get the best people doing the best things. If you're the best person, get to work. The Democrats are going to do Democrat stuff like this.
In fact, we could probably go a little bit further and fire this incompetent administration. But if we are going to talk about efficiency and worry about some solar paneled whatevers, let's talk about the fact that as of March 30th, Trump's golfing has cost us approximately $26 million. And the last time I checked, we're not getting anything in return for that. So I will get back on my remarks, but I just wanted to point out that maybe we need to talk about the president and his golfing habits. In fact, he decided that he was going to golf as the markets were tanking. He decided he was going to golf instead of receiving 4 heroes who died serving this country. He has decided that he wanted to play games while the rest of us are really trying to make sure that we can serve the American people.
Is that true? I mean, is that, you guys care about money now? You care about government waste or like how we spend the money on protecting the president? By the way, all that money is going to be like Secret Service salaries and movement of the jet and stuff that he does anyway. Never heard of that for Joe Biden. Even when he would like fly down and back for the weekend to go like sit there like pretty much every weekend. Yeah. You care about money? Stephen Miller asking the question.
You want to have a conversation about transparency. Let me ask you a question. Do you have any idea where the $22 billion that the Department of Health and Human Services provided to illegal aliens under Joe Biden is right now? $22 billion with a B. That's enough to provide a free house to every homeless veteran in America. Where's the $22 billion? I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. Joe Biden just spent it, and now it's gone. Transparency begins with having an accounting of where every federal dollar is spent. And God bless President Trump for leading this effort.
That's pretty straightforward. Yeah, I don't care about his golfing. I really don't. They did the same thing with Obama. He flew out to Hawaii and did all that kind of stuff. Like the money of it, that's sunk cost. There's bigger fish to fry, turns out. How come they only care about money whenever it matters? I know it's whataboutism, so I'll just call it that, but it's lame and it's weak. And that's why I don't feel worried about it. I really don't. Like that's what they're distracted by, Donald Trump going out to a golf course. The man who owns the flipping golf course, like a bunch of them. Not my problem. That's not going to be where it's going to get caught up. I do want to see our federal agencies do what they were told and get after it. And I want to see far less LARPing. And I hope it starts happening soon. And that's why we're pushing. Look, it's not to hurt anybody's feelings. It's because I'd like to see the actions because Donald Trump as a populist, and I discussed this actually with the Sunday sit down, it turns out if you push Donald Trump, he goes the way that he's supposed to go oftentimes when he knows where his base is at. If you guys are pissed off about seeing a J6 warlord jumping in and running the Washington field office, then don't stop. Don't stop talking about it. You just keep rattling. Eventually they'll pull him. That's what should happen. That guy should not be sitting in a position of privilege or power. He should not be getting a promotion. He should be getting shown the curb. Thought cutesy time was over. I want it to be over. So get to work, those boys. Here's another fun thing. We're going to end with this. It is here, let me see. How's the chat going over there? There's the chat. Oh, sorry. I didn't even add the chat. Well, that's terrible. I should add you guys on for a second. One of the things I've got for for our palate cleanse is actually kind of funny. The Make America Great hat has been lampooned in many ways. I would like Make America Steak again. That would be my thing. But apparently people have made a Make America Gay Again hat, which I guess is a thing. I didn't know that America ever was gay. I guess it was kind of gay under Obama. It was kind of gay under Biden, kind of gay-ish, right? So if you want to see somebody with a Make America Gay hat again, and they think that is a troll to a Trump person, this guy is the all-time winner of patience. I'm going to actually play it twice because it's a short clip. Just troll these clowns. This is fun. Like, we have to sometimes have a little bit of laugh about it. This guy does a great little insist on what the people who disagree with you actually do agree with you, and then just don't let it go. So here's that. This is the little cleanse for the day.
I like your MAGA hat. Yeah, Trump. Woo!
It says gay.
Oh, I know.
Just checking.
Trump fan.
Never know.
Trump?
No. It says Make America Gay Again.
Great. Again.
Gay.
I know, but we love Trump, right? I like your MAGA hat.
Right? Just insist.
Yeah,
just
Trump. Woo!
Yeah, woo. I like the woo.
It says gay.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, just accept it and then
Trump fan.
insist.
Never know.
Trump?
No. It says Make America Gay Again.
She's so upset she can't
Great.
figure out why he doesn't
Again.
get it.
Gay.
I know, but we love Trump, right?
She probably ran into somebody or ran over some kids in a crosswalk. Love it. Just keep doing that stuff. Like, do the fun things like that. If you're not having fun with this, you're not having fun. Yeah, this is, then it's a loss. We are winning some of the things, right? We really are. I think the economics, even though the dip, it's going to work out okay. All right, that's it for the day. Less grenades today, more precision fire. I really do want to push towards something that goes well. I told my buddies there in the Bureau right now, and hearing someone that I very much respect, who is an incredibly apolitical operator, who just does really good work inside the FBI. There's a couple of them out there. This guy was a solid investigator and bringing in a ton of like nationally important information from overseas. And if that guy tells me the DD is now the social media, influencer in chief, that's not a good sign. We don't need that. All right. If you guys heard that, gents, you know who you are. Get to work. Look forward to seeing you guys again tomorrow. God bless you. Have a wonderful, Wednesday? Have a great Wednesday. We'll talk again tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.